and welcome to another edition of the In Context podcast. It's me and Gary again, Gary Matthews and Ian Williamson from Medhurst Ministries, and we're looking at part two of Spurgeon and preaching like the working class. Last week we were looking at working class culture coming from the eyes of working class church members, and again we're going to look at some of the research that I did and how the church members have described their experiences of preachers in a predominantly middle class church. So, Gary, how are you doing, brother? Are you well?
I'm all right, big boss man. I'm all right.
Cool.
Here we go again, eh?
Here we go again.
It's about round five or something now. I think we've done about five podcasts now, haven't we?
Yeah.
Is it about four or five?
Yeah.
We've done a few, haven't we? After the first one, I said I'm not doing another one. I think I say that after most of them, to be honest. I say it after preaching, after leading church. You can't take the pressure, mate.
Oh, let's crack on. It's before you pack in again.
Yeah, yeah. Before I quit.
You've got a few to do with Steve Neal this week as well, brother.
All
So,
right, mate. He's not contacted me yet, so he might have forgot, hopefully.
yeah. Right. Well, the experience that a lot of the church members that I was speaking to uh, of their preaching, they mentioned how they felt uh, excluded and alienated by the preachers. Not that the preachers were doing this on purpose, but because of the culture, the way that they spoke, the words that they used, the way that they dressed, the mannerisms within the pulpit, felt a lot of people feeling excluded and alienated. And one of the reasons they thought that was they seemed that churches would often prioritize the preacher's academic and professional qualifications over their character. And I wonder, is that something that you've noticed or ever thought about when you've been sat in a church being preached to?
Yeah, so I've excuse me. So it seems like I've been to quite a few different churches. And all churches just seem to be different. But most of them was predominantly middle class. Do you know what I mean? People with suits on, people very educated, uh, probably with degrees and stuff like that. I found some of them very difficult to follow along with,
Mm.
especially some of the terminology and how they were speaking, what they were saying. Uh, yeah, and then yeah, it just depends which church I was at, different areas. So there's one church that I was at, they was all right, to be fair. They let a few people speak that wasn't like, not been to Bible college, wasn't very educated,
Mhm.
uh, couldn't really string a few sentences together. Do you know what I mean? But it's been a variety, to be fair.
And again, to be fair, if you are pastoring a church or preaching to a church that says in Oxford or Cambridge and the congregation are very middle class and very academic, then that's what you'd expect a
Mm.
preacher to be academic, to be preaching to the congregation in a style that they are used to, using words and terms that they understand. But when we come to churches on council estates to follow that same model, it's a bit ridiculous.
Yeah.
Again, if it shows that if we're doing that, if we're bringing uh, preachers and pastors into a working class context who don't contextualize, again, I think then we're missing the fact that preaching to the working class is cross-cultural ministry.
Mm.
And again, I think often many of the people that I interviewed during this research said, well, if you're bringing people who are academic into the pulpit, that they often overcomplicate the sermons and leave people thinking that what's just been spoken was irrelevant to their lives. And again, have you ever sat under the preaching of someone who would overcomplicate a sermon? And what does that say to you? How does that leave you feeling if you're left at the end of a sermon thinking, what was the point in that?
Yeah, quite a few times, to be fair. I'm not sure if it was just because he was preaching or because I'm just really slow, though, to be fair.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, I've been to like some churches when I'm just like, where's this going? What is the point of the sermon? I didn't really get the points of it. I didn't really get what it was about.
Mm.
At the end, I was just like, I don't even know what I meant to do with that. Wasn't encouraged, wasn't challenged by it. I was just confused by it,
Mm.
to be fair.
And I think for me, sometimes an overcomplicated sermon isn't just because somebody isn't preaching cross culturally. It can sometimes be because they haven't put the legwork in the preparation of the sermon. It's quite hard to take a
Mm.
difficult subject and explain it simply. And I think sometimes I've been guilty of that myself when I haven't truly understood a passage or haven't spent enough time. Uh, I might have understood it myself, but haven't spent enough time breaking it down to explaining it well to others. Again, that can come across not just because you're using terminology that you don't understand, but you haven't put the effort into to
Yeah,
break
yeah,
it down into a simple format for those you're speaking to.
yeah.
And
Especially for
again,
the
for me, even if you're academic, for me, why would you want to overcomplicate something?
yeah,
Just get straight to the point.
yeah. Especially with the application and stuff. I found myself doing it. To be fair, in my preaching, do you know what I mean? Even though I've not like preached loads, but I'm preaching more. I found myself like trying to preach like other people that was a bit clever than me. And
Mm,
also then I was just ended up reading loads of commentaries or books and kind of just paraphrasing it a little bit rather than speaking it like what was in the book, copying it a lot rather than thinking about how does that then apply to the everyday people of today.
mhm,
Do you know what I mean? And then I think like we was talking a few weeks ago as well on the last one, we was talking about the some of the characteristics of people from working class cultures about telling stories and stuff.
mm,
And that's what Spurgeon was really good at when he's preaching, telling stories.
mhm,
And then so my last sermon, I tried to change it a little bit rather than reading loads of books, although I did do a lot. I made it really more simple, and somebody come up to me at the end and said that was a really good sermon, but it was just really simple to understand,
mhm.
which was good. So I think, yeah, try and keep it simple.
And again, some people can be offended by that if they're told that that sermon was really simple and easy to
Yeah,
understand. Some people can take that as a negative rather than a positive.
I was encouraged by it.
Yeah, yeah.
You just want a simple gospel. I felt better preaching it as well. I felt like I understood it and it applied to me more as well,
Mm.
rather than trying to say stuff that I didn't really understand.
And again, I think if we were looking back to last week's podcast, part one, where we were talking about like the cultural differences, in particular how the working class are quite honest and open about the feelings, about the
Yeah,
struggles, and will often use illustrations about how the gospel has affected them, how they have struggled, and how the gospel has been useful for them. That produces, for me, what I've seen in the research is that a lot of church members, when they're hearing personal application and illustration, then they see it's relevant to their life. It's relevant to the life of the community and where they live. If they're using local illustrations, if it sounds like it's been written for them, then they find it more relevant. Whereas if you've got a middle class culture where the preacher's probably more guarded and less emotional and honest with the struggles, then that can help uh, make the sermon feel more irrelevant to the life of the listener on a council estate.
yeah, yeah, I agree with that. I agree with that. I was chatting with somebody at my church about that as well. I can't remember the full context of the conversation, uh, but we was talking about like the main points of preaching or something like that. And then it was one of the elders, and he was saying uh, he found it easier to write his sermon and applying it to the people of the church because he knows the people of the church.
Mm,
Do you know what I mean? So he could make it more relevant there because he knows all the different issues that are going on with the church. So a lot of his points that he can bring out of the sermon will be relatable to them because he understands the struggles and the battles that they're facing at the minute.
mm. Yeah, so that personal application again removes it from what a lot of the people interviewed said. They felt that they were sitting and listening to lectures
Mm.
uh, about historical facts on the Bible rather than a
Yeah,
sermon, which was showing how God's word can impact their lives and lead them uh, to see more sanctification in their life and lead them to praise Jesus more. It was more of a like history lesson, lots of great
yeah,
terminology on flip flops and things like that, and the type of acidity of the water in the River Jordan or something like that, and left
yeah,
people thinking, yeah, I'm not really interested in what type of stone was used to build the temple. I just want to know what does that represent and
yeah,
how does
yeah,
it
yeah,
affect me in my life today. And not saying that. history isn't important and
Yeah, yeah,
facts aren't important. I think that is very important. But if you
yeah,
leave it there, then it is just a lecture. If you don't explain further
yeah, yeah,
and explain the relevance of what you're teaching, then it is just merely an intellectual academic exercise rather than a heart-changing message from the Word of God.
yeah, yeah. How does it apply to me today, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah,
How do I live that out? What does that mean for me and my struggles and my counsellor state and my family and my sickness in my health in 2026?
yeah, definitely. And again, I think I'll be careful of how I phrase things because this is how people have felt and during their experiences. And I'm not saying that anyone who isn't working class and preaches on the working class does any of these things on purpose. Um, but one of the things that came up was uh, they often felt sitting under some preachers that the preachers had a superiority complex, which I doubt was the case. And I
Mm.
think it was just because it's a cross-cultural ministry, that often the preacher would sound like he's got it all together,
Mhm.
and that the only people struggling are those in the congregation. And again, we mentioned about the working class chip on the shoulder, so that might
Yeah,
have something to do with it. But I also think that much of it is because a lot of the preachers aren't sharing their struggles or their need for the grace and gospel as much as a congregation. Have you
yeah.
ever thought about that? And is there any other reasons why you might think that some council estate Christians might think preachers and pastors from a middle class background might give across a superiority complex?
Yeah, I think I think definitely the big thing what you just said, the chip on the shoulder.
Yeah.
I think like some working class people, I used to be like it. I'd look down on the middle class. Do you
Hmm.
know what I mean? And I think the middle class can do that. And I don't think they always intentionally mean to judge. I think it's just because there's such a difference
Mm,
in them cultures. Um, and I don't know whether the people intention, like you say, I don't think they intentionally mean to think to look down on people. I don't know if it's just because of their life experience and just their way they are. Do you
mm,
know what I mean? And I don't know, is it can it can it be changed? Do you know what I mean? So can working class, middle class people that come to working class areas to preach, can they change that cross culture? Is that a skill they can learn? Do you know what I mean? Or
mm,
is it just part of who they are and it comes out in their sermon? Because who we are comes out in our sermon preparation, in our sermon writing. Is it a skill that can be used, or is it just part of us that comes out in that in the sermon? Do you know what I mean?
mm. Yeah, and again, what about clothing and symbolism of the preacher? Have you ever been in a church setting where the preacher or the pastor, the way he dressed, has made you feel uncomfortable or put a barrier between you and what he's been hearing?
It did, especially when I first become a Christian, when I first started going around churches.
Mm,
But when I first become a Christian, but I kind of got baby stepped into it as well, God, in a comfortable way as well. So I didn't just start going to the church from the street. I was in rehab.
mm,
Do you know what I mean? So then within the rehab, we had to go and visit different churches, and we had to put dress up in suits and had to go to go to church. Do you know what I mean? So I just felt out of place straight away, mate. Do you know what I mean? You had loads of like addicts
mm.
dressed in suits having to go to church. And then like you had like people at the front with suits on. I was just like, man, this is crazy. Who wears suits nowadays? Not nobody from council estates. Not anybody I knew anyway. I didn't even wear suits going to court. I thought that was a bit of a barrier. Do you know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Well, that's what I was going to say. Like council estate people don't even wear suits for court now. It's tracky bottoms in it and
Exactly. I
a
used to walk
baghouse
around.
jacket or something.
Yeah. Yeah, walk around with tracky bottoms on. I used to like after I left the rehab, I'd dress like I normally dressed. I'd go to church like with my socks tucked into my jeans,
Mm,
my baseball cap sticking off my head. That's how I felt comfortable.
mm,
And like it doesn't bother me so much now, but I'm even at churches that I go to now. So depending again, so the last church that I was a part of a council estate, people just come in dressed as they was. Do you know what I mean? But
mm.
the church that I go to now, you get different things. People dressing in suits, people not dressing in suits. I think it can be a barrier though. It did make me uncomfortable quite a few times.
Yeah, and again, I think what people forget to understand, especially Christians who were working class growing up, who have been in the church for a long time and have been off a council estate for a long time, think, well, I'm working class and I always wore a suit. for church, and that's true. My granddad, working classes have come, both of them, but they would still wear collar and tie to go to the club, on a
Mhm.
Saturday
Yeah,
night.
yeah, yeah,
My granddad would even go and pick his pension up. He'd put like a Pringle jumper on with a collar and tie on, do you know what I mean? And a cap. But
yeah,
the postman used to walk around in collar and tie, and the local
yeah,
parkie would have the same thing. Like uniform was important. The schools had uniforms and
yeah,
blazers, ties, whereas now that uniform uh, doesn't exist really within the workforce or in the schools so much as they used to. So that's changed, and for me and for many of those who I interviewed, the shirt and tie symbolized an authority,
yeah,
which was a negative authority, where whether it be a social worker, a teacher, or a CID
yeah,
officer, uh,
yeah,
the working class experience with those in authority, that authority reassures the middle class. It puts a burden upon some working class people whose only experience with authority has been negative.
yeah.
Would you agree with that?
Oh yeah, definitely. Definitely, definitely agree with that. Yeah,
Yeah. And again, some of the people that were interviewed, they'd been taken into care by social workers, wearing shirt and ties.
yeah,
The family courts, the solicitors, they were seen as the enemy rather than as a friend and someone who could be relied on. Yeah. Huge symbolism within clothes, which I think is missed by many when uh, thinking about preaching to the working class. And again, how I've got to be aware of now that the church that I'm part of is intercultural. Now we've got people from different nations. So how do I reflect the dress code that is true to myself, how I dress normally during the week, so people don't think that I'm trying to pretend I'm somebody different on a Sunday than I am
yeah, yeah,
Monday through to Saturday, but also without offending people from different cultures. Where I think I've mentioned before on a previous podcast that when I was wearing shorts one summer and preaching, a lot of the Ghanaians were wondering why I was wearing little boys' pants, and that had become a barrier. So I've decided just to wear jeans. But again,
yeah,
I've got to be careful where I've got the dress so I don't offend others, but still stay true to myself.
yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah.
what do you think about uh, middle class people who generally wear a shirt, a tie, turning up, getting a tattoo, their head shaved,
Yeah.
and wearing like I don't know, like Nike one ends and stuff like that.
I think like come as you are in it, to be fair.
Yeah.
I think like whatever, wherever you are, come as you are. I worried also like where I live, there's a middle class church, and I started to go to it for a while. Do you know what I mean? Good evangelical church, nothing wrong with it. They love Jesus, they love the lost, but it's very middle class.
Mhm.
Do you know what I mean? I just like imagine someone rocking up with a one tendon with like a North Face tracksuit on and a baseball cap.
Mhm.
Do you know what I mean? They'd be like, "What's going on, man? What's going on?" But I had the same issue with like with wearing shorts. I was like really challenged by it. So I'd rock up to church in shorts and stuff. And then I was just really challenged by it. So I've just made a conscious decision not to offend anybody again. Do you know what I
Mhm.
mean? Not to offend anybody, not to wear shorts to church. I still go with my jeans or my trackies. Well, I don't even I stopped wearing trackies.
Mhm.
Uh, but I used to wear baseball caps all the time, and I started to wear them again as well because I feel comfortable in a baseball cap. Do you know what I mean? So I started to wear that at church as well, but I felt really uncomfortable with it. I don't know whether people felt uncomfortable with me on it with it as well.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know whether I would stand at the front with it on. Do you know, like you get some people that do stand at the front with baseball caps on, hats and all that. I don't know if I'd do that. I don't know how the people would respond if I did.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if it would offend them.
Mm.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I think how we respond as the congregation, we they're listening, and but when we're there preaching, that I think that becomes more important how we dress. We've got to become conscious. If we're aware of barriers that other people bring when they're
Yeah, yeah,
preaching, we'd be wrong, I think, to bring the same barriers in the pulpit when
yeah,
we preach. So if I
yeah.
was preaching to a middle class church, I try and stay
Wear
as
a
I
suit.
am. But yeah, I wouldn't go as far as wearing a suit, but I might wear a shirt with a pair of jeans.
Yeah.
I mean, I preached one time at this high Anglican church on Father's Day in a Peppa Pig t-shirt that my daughter was
Oh,
wearing.
mate.
So I was going to the procession, with the incense and all that, walking through, and I'm
Oh, mate.
fiddling behind in a pair of jeans and a Peppa Pig t-shirt.
Yeah,
But again, I don't think I'd do that again. I'd be a bit more because
yeah,
again, the same thing. I don't want barriers to be in the place of
yeah.
people.
That's why I've not wore a hat. That's why I've been challenged in about that. Do you know what I mean? So when I was like, I don't want to put barriers in other people's place as well. But we
Yeah,
can put barriers in working class, middle class people's spaces, can't we?
yeah. And I think it's different. I think middle class people are used to the working class assimilating. So us wearing a shirt and tie, I don't think would uh, shock the middle class church or be a barrier. But what during the research, what I found is middle class people trying to be cool and council estate is a barrier. So I feel sorry for some of the middle class preachers because in my research, it sounds like they just can't win. If they wear a suit and tie, that's an obstacle. If they try and be all council estate, that's an even bigger obstacle. So I think what was said was, yeah, we want you to be who you are,
Yeah,
but if you don't wear a shirt and tie when you sit having your Sunday dinner, you don't need to wear one while you're preaching. So dress formally, but like not too formally. Uh,
yeah,
but again, I think the most important thing is personality and
yeah,
preaching. And I just know for me the biggest shock I got was uh, when at New Life Church and I was training up a staff team. We used to meet and we all would go through teach people how to do Bible studies, prepare sermons, and things like that. And I put on uh, three sermons, and the first sermon I put on was uh, Duncan Forbes, who from a London council estate. Everyone taking notes, looking intently, listening to the sermon. The second one was Mes McConnell, again taking notes, looking intently, and then the third one was some middle class preacher who got up in a nice big church with a suit on, and immediately they just went. He hadn't even spoke.
yeah,
And I just watching them, they just weren't interested and weren't engaged. And at the end, I challenged them all and said, "Why did you switch off?" And they went, "Oh, he was boring." I said, "Well, you switched off before you even spoke. How do you know if he was
yeah,
boring?" And they all admitted, "Yeah." Basically, when I saw what he was wearing, I just thought, "What's he know about my
yeah,
life?" So I was having to encourage the church staff team to engage with instead of just listening to the same type of preacher, which
yeah,
would be either me or Mez or Duncan or whoever, to try and broaden who they listen to. And
yeah,
again, what we found is, I think listening to people online is a lot easier if you're not watching YouTube, if you're listening to a recorded sermon, because you don't have that judgment of how they look. You actually
yeah,
just listen to how they preach. So hopefully, yeah, we ironed out a few of our judgments and
yeah,
misconceptions of some of the more
yeah.
middle class preachers.
Yeah. I think we need to be willing to do that as well, don't we?
Yeah,
I think we need to be willing to change and try other things.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, so I think what we've seen is there is a definite difference between middle class and working class within the culture, within what they find important in sermons and in preaching. And in doing that, uh, what I did was uh, looked at what life was like back in the time of Spurgeon and if he had similar challenges or not. And obviously, I wouldn't be doing this podcast if there wasn't any similarities.
Yeah.
But there was huge similarities, and that is part of why he set up the pastors' college. Was he wanted to create uh, preachers who could preach to the masses, and that was by retaining their cultural identity. Spurgeon was wonderful at speaking across cultures. He was engaging. He was academic and theologically robust enough for the middle class academics, but he was also relational and relevant enough for the working classes, which I think was just a huge gift
Mm.
from God. He was probably one of the kind of the time, but he also knew that there was skills that you could learn and develop, and that's what he did within the pastors' college. And the first thing he did was he recruited people who were working class to preach to the other working class. And I think that is something that we've lost today. Spurgeon's college was designed to train people who weren't academic. There was no qualifications you need. needed to have academically, although there was huge qualifications that you needed in regards to character. He wanted people who were already preaching, who were
yeah,
living godly lives, who
yeah.
could see fruit from the ministry. But he didn't care about people's academic credentials. He cared more about your heart for Jesus and the heart for the lost and for the church. So he recruited, and part of the way he recruited was the church that he pastored had ministries that was serving the poor. They had classes where they would teach people on an evening, English, maths, basic education. There was like food kitchens. People would be fed. There was orphanages. There was a huge array of ministries to the poor, and a lot of working class people within his church who had ministry opportunities, who then went on to Bible college. And sadly, that college that he ran, the Pastors College, which became Spurgeon College, become as academic and
Mm.
probably everything that Spurgeon stood against as time went by and is now shut. But I just wondered about yourself. How have you found your ministry journey? Uh, what opportunities easy to come by to learn to preach and to be involved in ministry, or was it difficult?
A bit of both, to be fair. Uh, a bit of both. So I ended up, I think I had a good start because getting up and preaching, well, not preaching, but sharing my testimony. Do you know what I mean? Because like, I think a lot of people do that, don't they? When you come from the background that we come from, crime, drugs, and all that kind of stuff, people want to use you as a testimony. So when I was in the rehab, that's what they done. They went around a lot of churches, um, sharing testimonies, leading services, singing, all that kind of stuff. So I had a good little start doing that. Do you know what I mean? So that gave me a little bit of a taste for it. And then when I left there, the church that I went to initially, so they was good. So it was predominantly a middle class church, but it had a big pocket of working class people. Do you know what I mean? So they had a heart for the working class. Although I don't think he got loads of experience there, not initially. Um, but then I ended up getting a job with the church as well. Oh no, so I moved to Middlesbrough first.
Mm,
I done something called the Daniel Challenge in Middlesbrough, so that gave me an opportunity to do different types of ministry. I think just because it was that kind of program though. Do you
mm,
know what I mean? And then yeah, a couple of churches that I've been to, they've been willing to give me opportunities. I've not found it easy though. I
mm,
think a lot of the time they've given me an opportunity. They said, "Do you want to do it?" And then they just threw me in to do it rather than coming alongside me, teaching me how to do it, showing me how to do it.
mm.
And then I've struggled doing it and I still struggle to do it today. Do you know
Yeah.
what I mean? Nobody's come alongside me and taught me how to write a sermon, what to do, what not to do, or how to lead this or how to do that. I've not really had that kind of training or that input of people.
Mm,
I've just been kind of like through in the deep end to do it, to be fair. Um, so yeah, I've had a few opportunities, especially the opportunity of the church that I'm at now. So they're willing to, I don't know, they've seen something within me that they're willing to give me an opportunity to preach and to lead and stuff like that. Yeah. So yeah,
yeah. It's interesting you say that because some of the research interviewing council estate pastors and preachers, that was their experience as well. All of them started off being seen as the testimony guy,
yeah,
where they were like farmed out to go and preach, which for me is like a double-edged sword. It was positive in the fact that it gets you used to public speaking,
yeah,
uh, but was negative because you kind of become pigeonholed as the testimony guy. And
yeah,
a couple of the guys interviewed said that when they asked to train theologically and to train to preach, they were told, "No, that isn't for you." You know what I mean? Just be kind of content in sharing your
yeah,
testimony. It's Bible college is too academic for you. We don't think it's the right place for you. Uh, which, to be to be fair, I don't think Bible college is the right place for anyone. I think being trained in the local church is the best place to be
yeah,
trained.
yeah,
Uh, but again, it was that same thing, and then also a lot of them said that they felt thrown in at the deep end. So there was a mixture. of people who uh, were saved into churches that were led by middle class people who give them opportunity to share testimony, but dissuaded them from entering into formal theological training.
Yeah.
But then there was other guys who were saved similar to myself into a working class context and uh, thrown in at the deep end because there was no one there to preach. So
Yeah.
for me, I went around churches sharing my testimony. Then, because there was no pastors or preachers, they said, "Can
The
you come back
opportunity
next
to
week and
preach.
preach?" Yeah. So again, just I just learned on the job, made huge
Yeah.
mistakes and errors, but at least I had an opportunity to kind of refine
Yeah.
how I preached, and I learned distance learning with the FIEC on, and then again with the urban ministry program on how to preach. So yeah, it was kind of a double-edged sword that uh, some people weren't given the opportunity to preach or to train for preaching. Other people just thrown in and said, "Sink or swim."
Yeah. I think it can be a good thing and it can be a bad thing because it's stressful, man, isn't it?
Yeah.
But it can be a good thing. I tried Bible college, so I went to one church, uh, and then I tried Bible college, but it was just super academic,
Mm,
super academic. I was getting lost in all these like big long essays and reading all these books, and then there was no support with it neither.
yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I think because I've done like I shown that there was a little bit of ability there. I think the first talk, the first essay that I done was all right. I put loads of effort into it, and I tried with the other ones. And but when I first started, the first essays was quite easy to build
Mm,
you up. I think to get you into the habit of having to do it, and then it was just too difficult, man. And there was no real support there for me neither.
mm,
And I just felt like a failure with it. Do you know what I mean? I just felt like, man, what's the point in this? And it kind of put me off studying a little bit, to be fair.
yeah. And again, you mentioned the Daniel challenge where you were sent to a local church to train and to serve. And Spurgeon was huge on local church-based training.
Mm,
And again, last week we mentioned the importance of relationships in the working class community, and Spurgeon uh, saw that as a huge part of training formation for the pastors that he was training as well. And I think that was one of the reasons why they were involved so heavily in a local church. They would
mm.
live often with a family from the church that they went to, and that was seen as part of their ministerial formation as well. You got a lot of them were young and single, so they learned how to be a godly father and husband by being with families who were displaying that uh, godly family lifestyle. But also they were encouraged and supported by the family they were living with. Plus, also the relationships were encouraged amongst one another. I think the favourite part of the week was Friday, where they'd all get together and Spurgeon would come and give his lectures, and there'd
Yeah,
be laughing and joking and mockery and banter. So I think Spurgeon's character was somebody who was very humorous, but that lent well for the working class people who were training with him because
yeah,
they were getting the banter, they were getting the friendship and the relationship and the security of being in a godly home and godly environment and having the friendships and the relationships that are so important to working class culture. And share a little bit about what it was like for you working in a local church and living with a Christian family. Was that similar, different? How was that?
yeah. It was good to be fair. Again, it wasn't without its challenges, but it was good. And I think what was good about it. So when I become a Christian, so I grew up on council estates all my life. I didn't want to go back on them.
Mm,
To be fair, do you know what I mean? I was just like, I need a break. I can't go back on a council estate. And then it took a while for me to want to go on a council estate, and then God sent me to Middlesbrough to work on lots of different council estates. So God was a bit gracious to me because I stayed with a family that wasn't on the council estate. Do you know
yeah.
what I mean? So there was like in a nice area, but that was good. Yeah, it was good to. It was nice to be part of a stable family where I've not been around stable families. I
Mm,
was always around single parent families or families with just lot of chaos, especially my own family. Do you know what I mean? So it was nice to be around a couple that loved each other, respected each other, didn't shout at each other. It was nice that for me, to be fair. It was nice to be around, and it was nice to be uh, at a church, and then the pastor come alongside me quite a bit as well, to be fair, which was good. He was
mm,
quite good with his discipleship, actually, the pastor at that church. and then just the opportunity to do try lots of different ministries. So there was like within that we've done lots of different ministries. Done like youth ministries, mercy ministries, lots of different ministries. But we had people there teaching us and coming alongside us and showing us how to do it. More mature believers that have already done it. Do you know what I mean?
Mm.
Rather than just throwing us in the deep end. So it was really structured for for us to be able to continue to do it and learn rather than being thrown in and then just struggling and battling it out. Yeah, so it was really good. I thought it was like, yeah, it was a really good time for me. It was a really good time for me.
Yeah. And again, that very typical from the council estate preachers and pastors I interviewed. Many of them had spent time, including myself, living with a family from church, being supported from them, found that integral,
Yeah.
uh, getting them off their estate so that they'll have a time of peace
Mm.
and a time of growth. And although they found it difficult, what we also found again is that every pastor and a working class pastor and preacher who that I interviewed lived with a middle class family. So
Yeah.
again, what I don't want the listeners to think is that we're having a go at the middle class here. We're just highlighting the cross cultural differences, but also how uh, some of the mistakes that the middle class church has made with working class pastors and preachers, but also some of the wonderful benefits that they've brought to our lives, which again opening up the home and letting some
Yeah.
nut jobs like us live with them for
Yeah. Yeah.
several months.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because as much as we found it tough, it must have been tougher for them having a bunch of freaks like us wandering
Yeah.
around the house.
Yeah. Yeah. I actually had another family let me live with them as well. So that was like, so I
Yeah,
met when I'd like just literally, I'd not even become a Christian. Do you know what I mean?
yeah,
And like, there was this couple, and then I met them in this church, and then their pastor got me a place in this rehab in Wales. And then I went, and this family stayed in touch with me. They didn't
yeah,
even know me, man. Do you know what I mean? They
yeah,
stayed in touch with me. They're writing to me. They was like coming to visit me. And then I left the rehab, and they've kind of like created a bedroom in the house for me to go and live at. It was just amazing, man. It was
yeah,
just amazing. And like there was a really lovely couple, and they just let me like move in with them. They loved me. Do you know what I mean? And they accepted me. They knew all my history, my background, my past. And then they let me come and live with them. And I made a few mistakes while I was there, to be fair. Do you
yeah,
know what I mean? Uh, I ended up drinking and all that kind of stuff.
mm,
Yeah, it was not good yet. They still loved me. They didn't abandon me. Like in my past, they'd have been like, oh, that's people in my past, they would have been like, oh, look, he's off again. That's
yeah,
Gary. I'm not having him. I'm rejecting him. Yeah. So some middle class people have made a massive benefit in my life. They made a real big difference in my life.
mm. Yeah, and that's what I found from everyone that I interviewed, that there was some uh, individuals and families who were part of these middle class churches who were key to the development and the stability that we needed in our early Christian walk to move
Yeah.
forward. And again, we talk about uh, in the research, there's something called extraction. That's where when people get saved, you take them out of their community, and that's seen as often is seen as negative. Say if somebody is saved from a village within Pakistan, and then like what happened during the early missionary times was they'd be brought to the UK to be trained for ministry and sent back like a fine speaking English gentleman. Dressing had changed, accent had changed, language had changed, and they felt that they'd lost their cultural power, their cultural identity was kind of taken from them. So that extraction is seen as negative, often within missiology. But for us, that extraction is often necessary, that we
Yeah.
are taken from our estate so uh, we can either get clean, sort out our heads, so that we're fit for ministry and not surrounded by temptation. Although that might just mean moving somebody from one council estate and putting them on a council estate elsewhere, supported by a healthy church, like what happened with Sam on the interview where I'm speaking with Sam. He shares how he was taken from Wales up to Niddry, which is a tough estate in Scotland, but he had that support that we had and we needed. Living with a Christian family, being loved, he
Yeah.
was given an opportunity to serve in a local church. So I think there's two ways that we can be supported: just getting off council estates, full stop, that might be necessary for some people to get clean and get firm foundations in the faith. Other people just might need to be part of a strong church with people who understand them and can kind of
Yeah.
guide them and mentor them on another council estate. So, yeah, I think both are equally important.
Yeah, it's very individual, isn't it? It's like what's going to work best for the person.
Yeah. Oh, nice one, brother. So, we've looked at council estate culture. We've looked at uh, different ways, different barriers, and problems when cross-cultural ministry isn't done well between middle and working class. But we've also seen some of the blessings and benefits of when cross-cultural ministry is done right between the middle
Yeah.
class and working class. So next week we'll look at a little bit more of what Spurgeon did with his training. What did he teach his students? How did he encourage them to retain their cultural power in evangelism? Thanks for joining me, Gary.
Cheers, mate. Good to be here.
Speak to you soon, brother. God bless.
Bye bye.